Welcome to the Property Regeneration Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss innovative products and services that meet either local, social, technological, environmental, political, and legal needs within the construction industry or property market. Introducing your host, a property developer and investor, Rachel Gross.
Hi, I'm Rachel Goss. Welcome back to part 2 of the discussion on innovative technologies. If you missed part 1 of the discussion, you can find this on our previous episode.
Because I'm just thinking back to the point I made about how we get the ordinary person on the ground, in a sense, to start implementing these new technologies.
I see.
I mean, on a large scale, perhaps it's unreachable for them because they only wanted to do like a housing extension. But something like Qbot is something they can, in a sense, I'm assuming it's more tangible for them to bring on board and start playing with that idea of using robotics on site. And then as the industry evolves with time, there might be a scale room for them to now start doing off-site construction and bringing that in and then growing from that scale up.
You know, indeed. And I think that's just like hiring a plumber. You know, you're hiring somebody to come in for 3 days to fit a boiler. You hire somebody to come in for 3 days with a robot to insulate your floor. It's as straightforward as that in terms of availability within, let's call it the retail or the homeowner market. But there are also some very good examples of entire extensions being built as a pod and just dropped onto site. And that has happened. It's not something as our practice we've researched because we haven't had the opportunity to look at delivering a solution like that. But, you know, it's been done. And as I said, as this technology and the industry has more of a take-up of off-site construction techniques and there are more companies that deliver within that market, then there will be companies that will be able to deliver smaller scale one-off units. You know, so that, as I say, it'll be a trickle-down effect. And there's early adopters there at the moment who are already doing that. So that's a sign of where it's going.
Okay. You mentioned BIM. I'm a big fan of BIM. I'm quite curious to know, being a small scale practice, how much of BIM you actually implement in all your projects. I know large scale wise, you've got the government who are wanting BIM 2 to be implemented, and you've got a few private companies who are starting to see the benefits of having it in their projects. But again, these are large scale projects and large organizations. Being a small practice, do you use it? And if you do, what benefits have you seen it bring to your business?
There's a long answer and a short answer. I'll give you the short answer first. Okay. The short answer is that we use what would be described as level 1 BIM. We use an organization where we build a graphical database, and from that graphical database, we then extract layers of information to produce a document that is used for communication. The documents are transmitted in 2D. Primarily, the sector of the market that we work in is fairly small scale, generally high-end residential. We find that is fit for purpose because a lot of the contractors that we work with just don't have the facility to deal with a digital form of information unless it's a PDF and they can print it. So that's the level that we're at. And again, this is about adoption within the industry. So from that point of view, we do organize the information and coordinate all the services information within one model. But we tend to do that in-house and take the digital information from the other consultants. We're not working on a shared model. But the long answer is that when we produce 2D drawings, we're using what's called autographic projection. You have a scaled projection of that object on an elevation. That was developed about less than 200 years ago. And it was actually a military secret for a long time. It was used to design components of weapons so that individual manufacturers could make pieces and not know what they're making. And then they would be assembled into whatever was being constructed. So that's why it was a military secret, and I think it was a French military secret for a long time. I have a drawing of the Imperial College Tower, which was drawn, I think, in 1880. It's a single piece of paper,
Yes.
beautifully drawn with pen and ink, and it has every bit of information that the contractor needs to build that building. So in a sense, that is a BIM model. It's a building information model. It's just 2D and it's on a piece of paper. So we think, for me, building information model isn't so much about the digital twin of the building. It's how you're organizing the information for the other person to receive it and how it's communicated. Right. And of course, then technology was relatively simple. You didn't need a lot of information. But now our buildings are much more complex. The amount of infrastructure that goes into buildings needs to be coordinated and controlled. There is a lot of, in new build houses, for example, you will have heat exchange ventilation. So a lot of ventilation ductwork, a lot of cabling for IT, for smart home systems, heating and hot water and electrics, the normal things, lighting control systems. So suddenly houses have masses of infrastructure that needs to be coordinated. And that's where BIM plays a really big part to allow, especially on the mechanical and electrical side, to coordinate the information clearly so they can mitigate against clashes and problems on site when it's being deployed.
Okay, interesting. Was another point that's to my, but it's gone now. It was in relation to smart technologies. Now, if we move into smart discussion and smart technologies, how you see that playing into the way these modern forms of construction are playing out, in a sense, how you see the two intertwining, and how much of a role as designers in technology you will have in bringing smart technology into construction. Because I went to EcoBuild, for instance, recently this year. There was a conference looking at smart technologies and how the building occupant can now control their environment from their phone. If they're too hot, they're too cold. If they need to turn on devices, digital devices within their space internally. And I'm just thinking, as an organization, do you see yourself bringing these into your projects, and what kind of challenges you're likely to face in implementing these?
Yeah. On 3 of the projects that we've delivered recently, there has been a smart home designer involved, and a full smart home control system was deployed. So all of the lighting, all of the heating, CCTV cameras, security, audio visual, were all controlled via one interface that you can have on your smartphone, on a tablet, and there's some tablets in various points within the home as well. So these devices can communicate to that central control system, and there are many control systems on the market. This happened to be Control 4 as one of the system interface.
Yeah,
and it is becoming, I think, more commonplace for people to look for that level of control. And it trickles, and it has already trickled down to even the DIY store. You can buy simple control systems for your home that you can plug into a socket and then control and switch lights on and off and do various things like that. That's where my comments earlier about the volume of infrastructure in the building is increasing, because you have a lot of these devices. About a year or so, maybe longer, somebody gave me a statistic, which is now out of date, I can guarantee you. But they said at that point, and it was a smart home installer, that there were something like 15 devices within your home that would use the Wi-Fi network. And you say, really, 15? Okay, there's 4 of you in a house. You probably have 2 devices each. Well, that's 8. You've got TV. You might have a computer. So you can add up the 15 relatively quickly.
Sure.
The prediction is that in another 4 or 5 years, we'll have something like 150 to 200 devices that can communicate on the network. Everything with a switch could potentially have an IP address, and it could communicate. So you could control switching on and off your kettle, things, or the washing machine, or whatever it might be. That will become, I think, more commonplace. And then you need to think about how you manage all of that traffic within the Wi-Fi network. So this is where it becomes quite a specialized area to separate bandwidths of communication. So different devices use different things, and your Netflix isn't working because the washing machine is asking for information, something as ridiculous as that. So that's becoming much more commonplace. And then I meet some clients who really resist that. They don't want a connected home. They want a simple switch to switch the light on or off. They don't want Alexa listening in on their conversation or whatever device it might be, or Google or whatever it is. So there's a little bit of a resistance to all of this technology as well. So yes, it is going to become more commonplace. And I think there will be solutions that an electrician can get in a DIY store and install that will allow a level of functionality within the home. And they're already available. So more and more so, I would say.
So when you're designing these smart appliances, in a sense, in a home, how do you go about it? Is it a case of you've got a brief, then you've got an electrician, this is what I want, go to the supplier, or is it your relationship with the supplier to bring in these appliances to fit around your brief?
There's probably 3 tiers to the way that would work. We work directly with clients and we talk about their holistic brief in terms of how they want their home to work. And that is everything from, picking finishes to fittings to designing the layout to then getting building control approval and doing the traditional role that we would normally do as the lead designer. We would then also understand from those conversations their need or desire to have some sort of control system. And depending on the knowledge and sophistication of the client, that will be articulated at different levels, depending on their engagement with that aspect of technology. But really, you need a specialist company who will then install the smart home system. Generally, what they will do is they will take a very detailed brief from the client. They'll demonstrate the offering that they can provide and how it can control various aspects of their home, and then design a system to deliver on that brief. Often they will provide a set of wiring diagrams and provide the cabling and leave it with the electrician then to install the cabling from point A to point B. Then they come and test the cables to make sure there's continuity before everything is closed up. And then towards the end, second fix and install the devices. By doing it in that manner and allowing the electrician to install the cabling, you're then avoiding program clashes where you've got one person installing IT cabling and somebody else installing electrical cabling, and you're trying to work around each other because you're doing a similar kind of operation. The cable installation is best left as a single operation. There also needs to be very close coordination between the lighting design person in the smart home systems team and the electrician, because the power that's serving the lights needs to be installed in a particular way to connect to the lighting control system. It's not installed in the traditional way where you'd have a switch on the wall. Although there are retrofit devices that can go on to the normal switch in the wall and give some control. If you're doing it from scratch, it's not necessarily how you do it. So really, they're the 3 tiers. There's our tier in terms of understanding the broad brief. And if we understand the client wants a smart home, in inverted commas, we then would introduce them to a number of providers who they can then get quotes and select from. And then that provider would design the system like any other specialist designer, like a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, if there are specialist systems being deployed in the house. And then they would then pass information and sometimes materials to the electrical contractor to install. And then they come in and do the second fix. And while the electrician is working on his install, they're probably building a rack full of equipment in their workshop that they just wheel onto site and begin to plug in. I make it sound very simple, but it takes quite a lot of time and there's miles and miles of cable involved.
It sounds very technical, but I'm thinking to myself, aesthetic-wise, where do the aesthetics side of the design come in? If you've got a brief, let's say, from a client and they've got this particular look end product that they're looking for, how much of the aesthetics side of design do you actually get involved? Or is it very much, I want a Samsung product, it's pre-made, I'm just taking it as it is and I'm making that work within the space and environment that I'm creating. Do you get to play with the actual design of the smart appliances? Or do you think that's something too far-fetched yet for the design industry in construction to get involved in?
I think, yes, you have to be involved and understand what the brief is and what the client is selecting. And that can impact on the design in a number of ways. We've done numerous schemes where the TV is concealed, and one scheme where there is a panelled wall and the panels slide to reveal the TV. So clearly we need to know what the TV size is, so it's going to fit when it arrives. So it does impact on the aesthetics. We've recently completed a house, and there's a number of TVs in the house, but when you're in the living room, there's no TV. There's a beautiful mirror, and it's actually a TV. The mirror turns into a TV, and that was bought as a device, and that was an aesthetic choice because they wanted to be able to have access to a TV in that room, but didn't really want to sit there and watch a movie. But you might have the news on or whatever, or a football match if you're kind of wandering around, whatever it might be. So yes, there are aesthetic elements to it. From our point of view, we don't really get too involved in the detail of the spec of the device. There's a number of reasons for that. One is clients will have their own preferences. The technology moves forward all the time. The flat screen TVs 20 years ago were about 5 foot deep. So they took up half your living room. Now they're 5 millimeters thick. So, things change rapidly. And even with the smart home installers that we work with, they tell our clients, don't select your TVs until a couple of months before the end of the project, because if the project is a year long, if you're buying stuff now, you get better stuff for the same money in a year's time. So that's how quickly things move along. So we just don't get involved. We like to know what it looks like. We like to agree on the size because we're designing bits of the fabric of the building to receive these items that have a dimension. But we don't get really involved in the selection. Now, that might just be me, because nobody gets more irritated when I have a remote control in my hand than my wife, because I go, where is that information button again? I just like to watch TV. I'm not too really concerned about everything it can do.
The technical side of it.
Even though I like technology, I'm probably not the best person to talk about which TV you should buy.
Okay. Nice. Well, I guess we're kind of wrapping up now, this discussion. Before we finish, I was just wondering if any of our listeners are quite keen on reaching out to you to work with you on high spec luxury residential conversions in London, or could be UK. How can they reach you?
It's very easy. We have a practice in the Republic of Ireland, actually, and we have a practice in the UK. So we work in the southwest of Ireland, southeast of the UK. The practice is called Healy Cornelius Design. So healycornelius.com, which is the Irish spelling without the second D. So HealyCornelius.com. So thank you for the plug. So yes, I'm very happy to speak with anybody. So we always begin with a conversation to understand a client's needs and a visit to the property, because a visit and a conversation before either side is committed is really useful, because you can be quite open and talk at length about your intentions. Then we're able to design a service that will fit, because no two clients are the same. Their needs are never the same. Correct. And there's never one kind of cookie cutter model of services you can just hand to somebody. Plus we do quite a range of work. We do everything from sketch design to furniture design to lighting design. We offer a technical studio, because we work with other interior designers, architects and builders. So we work with other interior designers, architects and builders, where we provide technical studios. So we've got one project where we're designing furniture for a very high-end residence, another project where we're designing the cladding for the inside of an air intake duct that's going 9 floors underground. That will never be seen by anybody. And that's for a contractor on design and build. And then we're working with interior designers on very high spec stuff. So I think that statement really gives a flavour of the range of skills and facilities within an architectural technology practice. You can support other designers with the technical knowledge and skills and studio service that you've got.
Okay, that's good. Just one last question. You mentioned D&B contracts, and of trying to wrap my head around these relationships you're having with the architecture and interior design. What are the typical contracts that you would use within your organisation to work with these different relationships?
Well, if we're working with interior designers or other architects, sometimes we're employed directly by the client. So we have our own appointment documents for services with the client. Sometimes we're employed by the designer or the contractor. So that's our service contract. And then there is the building contract, which the client would then seek to have with the contractor. So they range, there's the Joint Contracts Tribunal, JCT contracts, which people may have heard of. The RIBA produce contracts as well, building contracts. And there are various types of contracts for types of situation. Small scale home extensions, there is a homeowner's contract by JCT, which is very simple, but quite a robust contract. Then there's minor works and intermediate with contractor's design. The design and build contracts tend to be for larger projects where the work starts while design is still being finalized, and a design portion becomes the main or a specialist contractor's responsibility. And it's on those contracts we're employed by the specialist contractors to be their technical studio and do the design portion for the contractor. Okay. So yes, it depends on the project. Then there's a contract really to fit that relationship.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Appreciate that. Guess we'll be broadcasting this on the 20th.
Right.
So I will send you the link.
Thank you.
And you can have a listen. And hopefully
dig out my old iPod and get my Apple account active again.
Exactly. And hopefully we'll get the discussion rolling on the blog as well. Get people talking, get the conversation going. Technology, modern technology. Yeah. Brilliant.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Property Regeneration Podcast. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram and Pinterest, and contact us on contact@propertyregeneration.co.uk for more content and to have your questions answered. Until next time, adopt innovations to accommodate the growing population.